or society, social structure. I've always believed, as it is told to us by Lord Krishna in the Gita, that the Varna system is based on gunas and not on birth. So in that context, what is the optimal social structure? Vaidyanathan has written articles and knowledgeable in it. And so that's why I invited him to present a few points. And there will be a question answer session, right? Am I right? Yes. So you can ask him questions. You should be able to, because there has been an attempt that somehow to say that this is a birth-based disadvantage or a birth-based advantage, and we have to combat it. Saying no, okay, we are all one Indians, and this division was based basically for decentralization of society, and it has degenerated, so we want to rectify it. Over to Professor Vaidyanathan.
Thank you, Dr. Swami. Actually, we call him as Professor's Professor. Some musicians are called musicians. Like that, he is called Professor's Professor. Because he represents quintessentially for all the professors how to be a professor. That is why we call him as so thank you very much, and thanks to the state president for inviting me, Madam Chandralekha, as well as to Jagdish Shetty, so many people who are around for my well-wisher. Now this topic is something new, purely from the point of view of being discussed. First and foremost, when the name caste comes, many people are uncomfortable. What is this, sir? What are you going to talk about? In Trichy, incidentally, this is the first group of intellectuals and participants, politically aware people, to whom I am presenting this. The book is going to be released on 25th or 26th of this month. So this is the pre-release, pre-book release, what one can call teaser for you all. I thought this will be a very good group to introduce the theme. And after 25th or 26th, I would request all of you to obviously buy the book. Right? I am not asking you to read the book, just buy the book. That would be enough for me, right? Reading or not reading is your choice. Even my student, I cannot tell them to read anything this year. Because they will say, sir, your professor is harassing us, asking us to read things. Anyhow, so this topic itself, many people wonder. In Trichy, Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, they told they would release my book without, then they asked what is the title of the book. I told them, sir, you send a copy of the book better, because we have to discuss with the committee. Because the name caste is coming in your title. So this is something very, very interesting. Particularly people from Tamil Nadu will know. We have a love-hate relationship with caste. Everything is decided here based on caste. Every caste has got a political party in Tamil Nadu, and every party is belonging to some caste. And then we will say we will create a casteless society. All over the country it is the same thing. But we are not going into the political dimension, nor are we going into all other ancient distinction between guna-based and varna and the systems of. We are not going to all those things. We will just take caste as it is available today in the Indian context, and then see how it is leveraged by many groups in order to enhance their economic power. This will be our theme of discussion. We are not going to get into the issue of caste discrimination, then the issue of reservation. All those things will not find us in our focus is how caste is used as a social capital. That is what we will try to. Caste itself is a very, as I told you, interesting thing. There used to be one gentleman called Virat. He was a very huge liquor baron. He was very well known in Tamilnadu. And he was also very close to P.V. Narasimhan. And he was appointed, I think if I remember, as a Tirupati Devasthanam board. He was one of the senior member or chairman or something. Anyhow, once I met him in Bangalore. We were a small group talking to each other. And I asked him out of curiosity, how come you are putting your name as Virat? Because everybody knows, we have created a casteless society. So he was laughing. He told the professor, you should know one thing. In our place, in Tamil Nadu, a lot of people put doctor without getting any doctorate. They just put it. Actually, one of our former chief minister who recently died, he was conferred a doctorate for which people protested. I am talking about 70s. Then he asked the police to shoot them down. One student died. Then he says people are putting Padma Shri also. That is supposed to be not a degree. It's supposed to be honor conferred and you have to keep it. But they put huge posters. Then he told me an interesting thing. Some people put professors also. There is one leader in DMK. He was a tutor only. But he is called professor. So everybody is putting all these things. This one, I didn't get it by mischief or thievery or nothing. This is just given to me by the parents. Why can't I have the right to put this? So he made a very, he was a very, in spite of being a liquor baron, he was a very pious gentleman. So he told what is that? Then if you travel in the city, in the heart of the city, there is one road called Muthurabalinga Tevar Road. You will find it fascinating that Muthurabalinga Tevar is written on the board. It's not Muthurabalinga Road. It's Muthurabalinga. I always used to be wondering because everywhere else they have cut off this thing. Wherever there was one Dr. Nair Road, Nair they wanted to, that they have kept. So there is what one can call, I asked somebody, why don't they cut off this Tevar thing? He told nobody will dare to do that. There would be the fellow who tried to cut it off the Tevar name, his neck will be cut off. So that's what will happen. So there is a sort of an interesting love-hate relationship, but we would not go into that dimension of it. We would just focus on how it has facilitated the growth of business, one. Two, how it has been neglected totally by government, particularly the last 60 years of the Nehruvian government. Because Nehru declared that we have created a casteless society by declaration. So we have even stopped taking caste census. Some of you will come to that. After 1951, there is no census in which caste is indicated. Last caste census was in 1931. So because Nehru felt that caste is abolished in this country. So this is and so a lot of these economic clusters in the country are actually caste-based clusters. They have done phenomenally well in terms of their economic activity. And all the government reports, government commissions, they all talk about this economic cluster. 800 clusters are there in this country. Different places. There is a Tirupur cluster, there is a Surat cluster, there is a Batinda cluster, there is a... Like that, there are huge number of clusters. Nobody talks about caste of those clusters. They all talk as if, it has come from nowhere. And through the government effort it has developed, which is not true actually. So this is another thing. The only report which came in the late 80s, which talk about community is pertaining to leather industry, where they talk about Muslims and Harijans or the listed community playing a very major role. The Muslims as owners and the other group as workers. That's the only place in the government of India's entire discussion on economic aspect, where a community is mentioned as one of the major sources of the particular industry. That's the leather industry. Anyhow, we will just look at it some of the. Most of you may be aware that we are reasonably going fast in the last 10 years, and I think some of you might have seen my book India Unincorporated. If you have not bought it, I would recommend you strongly to buy that also. We have established that something like the order of 50% of our economy is not the corporate, it's a private proprietorship and partnership type of firms. And in the service sector, their role is much, much more important. Something like now it is nearly 67, two-thirds of the economy is service sector, and of that nearly 70% is by partnership and proprietorship firms. So that is the basis. Huge amount of domestic saving is funding this development of our economy. We talk about FIA and FDI and other things, but they do not provide more than 10% for our investment. The massive amount of investment comes from Indian saving and the household sector saving. 85% of the saving are household. So one single reason for Indian economic growth is ordinary Indian housewives. Can you remember this always? An average Indian woman is the primary reason for our economic development. And different castes and communities have also played an important role. That is what we are going to explore in this. Now, you may be surprised. The hierarchy of caste was created in 1881. Two mischiefs British did in the first census of India. Not many people would have had occasion to even read this first census. It's not in a readable format or anything. You have to go through microfiche in order to see what exactly it contains. What are the two interesting mischiefs they did? First one was, till the 1880 census, Indian women had only single name. Very interesting. Much before that, in our tradition actually, Indian men were known by their wife's name. You have Sita Raman. Sita Raman is not Sita. Sita Raman is actually the Ram. In today's context, Sita Raman will be the wife of Raman. Something very interesting. We have Janaki Raman, Maithili Raman, like that. Similarly, the children were known by their mother, not by their father. It was Kunti Putra. Every day morning, everywhere, the microphones blare, waking up Lord Venkateshwara. It is Kaushalya Supraja. It is not Dasaratha Supraja. It is always the mother which I asked one Brahmashri Narayan Sakri, who is no more, very old man. He had a sense of humor. He told earlier Indians knew that mother is certainty, father is probability. So that is the reason why their children were all named only after parents. If you see the annexure to the constitution, they are called Bharat. I think most of you would know. India, that is Bharat. It's a Bharata country. This Bharat, many people mistake it is Rama's brother. No. He is actually the son of, any idea? Shakuntala. So the constitution in the small footnote says son of Shakuntala. Not fiction. He doesn't play a major role. So the Bharat name itself comes from the mother. So the Britishers are the one first to create that. They instructed the census enumerator, you put the woman name and put her husband or father's name next to that. That is how women should be identified. Why? Because in UK they were identified like that. That is an interesting type of a mischief. Aside that, the second they did was they created hierarchy of caste. When they enumerated in 1881, they told the enumerator, you find and you decide, not by what was told by the respondent, but the enumerator will decide to which caste you belong. Then the enumerator told there are thousands of castes in India. The Britishers told no, take 4 of them. They decided 4 in order to enumerate. Why 4? Because in UK, in the social hierarchy, there were 4 categories. A class being civil servants, B class being other type of officers, C is clerical cadre, D is the peon cadre. So this ABCD was the standard notion in UK. So they imparted it as a model to India. So they told the enumerator, you classify them as 4 classes and create a hierarchy. Why should we create a hierarchy? Till then it was lateral. There was no particular hierarchy or anything. There was chaos actually. In terms of you create hierarchy because it will help us later to create division and distinction between them. Not many are even aware of it. So lateral it was earlier, became hierarchical by the British in 1881, first census. I had the privilege of going through the first census with a lot of difficulties and full of those Victorian English and other things. If you have occasion, you should have a look at it. Then all our kings and princesses were what are currently known as SC, ST, OBC groups. 562 were merged by Sardar Patel. 562. He could not do it for Jammu and Kashmir. Otherwise it would have become 563. Of the 562, 546 were SC, ST, OBC group. The remaining were Muslims who were in the... There were several reformers, of course, who wanted to abolish caste. Everybody started to, but nothing has come about. Some changes have only come about. This is thriving. This is going on in the system. In 1929, caste were identified in 1881 census. Very interesting. And 58% had a population of less than 1,000. Those castes were declared to be. And you will be very surprised, roughly 110 castes were one member caste. That is the set in the mathematical jargon, and only one member. He will declare himself to be, I belong to this caste. So there were huge number of what one can call issues in terms of identifying how many castes. That continues even today. That continues even today. So there was a disaggregation. Now what is happening, because of political reasons in democracy, aggregation is taking place. For instance, some 70 years before, there was no caste called Devas. There were only Agamadayar, Kannars and Karavas. Now all of them are clubbed together into Devas because it is a major political mobilization. So aggregation is taking place today, you should know. Similarly, Gujar, there are 440 Jats group, 440, and all of them are now talking about Jat as if it's a single entity or something. So we have something very interesting going on. The last census, there was a proposal to have the caste included. There is a big debate about it in 2011. We have 10-year one census. 2011 is the last census conducted. Then finally it was decided it would not be possible to merge it with census. We will have a separate socio-economic caste census. It was done actually, but the data which was thrown up by that has created a huge amount of issues. There is an organization called Niti Aayog, I am sure most of you would have heard about it, which is the child of Planning Commission. That board was removed and a new board was put on the front of the Bhavan, Vidya. They were asked to clean up this data. They have not done anything. They are not able to. The reason is very simple. Because different people understand different things when they are asked about their task. You go and ask, an enumerator goes and asks you, what is your task? Then there is a huge amount of problem. They ended up with 4.6 million caste entries. If you go by the 2011, what has been collected in data, we have in India 4.6 million caste. Are you happy, sir? You want more or you want less, I do not know. Right? This is the number. That is why that time Registrar General of India, he flagged problems in generating this type of data. It's not a very easy thing. Now, after collecting the data, there are a lot of discrepancies. To every fourth household, 81 million of total 330 million were covered in terms of this. 67 million cases were rectified. Okay? States were asked, and the state as usual ticked, okay, like that. We know how the state governments in various places function. They covered 330 million households, ended up with a list of 4.6 million entries. That means, on an average, 72 households used the same phrase to identify their caste. If you want a particular caste, how many households are available? Only 30. Because 4.6 billion entries were made. So everybody used to argue that they belong to. Anthropological survey also attempted something like this in 80. And they were not able to classify 65,000 castes. They identified 65,000, not to the extent of this 4.2 million. So there is a huge problem in terms of finding out how many castes are there in India. It's not a very easy type of a. My government, state government, Karnataka, they conducted an elaborate caste in 2017. They have before that also, for the backward classes commission, Chennai commission, so many were there. And then, after conducting this caste census in Karnataka, this only for the state, they found out that Dalits and Muslims outnumber Linkayats and Okkaligas. Something very interesting. When it was, the scheduled castes account for 19.5%. And the Muslims next come as 16%. Well, the census was telling only 14%. If you add these two groups, 19 plus 16, it comes to something like 35%. Traditionally, it is always believed that Linkayats and Okkaligas are the largest segment of Karnataka population. And all politics is around that. And Devarajas used to mobilize the non-Linkayat, non-Okkaliga, and then try to. So, they were, it was found out in this caste census, they made up only 14 and 11% of the population. Obviously, there was a furor. There was a huge amount of noise. And what the government will do, as usual, any government, they put it in the cold storage. So they told us, they have not released it. They told this is not reliable and this is not acceptable, and because once they release it, it will create a huge amount of controversy. Not only that, the selection of candidates for election and so many other parameters will be totally changed. So the first and foremost, I think we should recognize is number of castes in India is not known. First point. Second point is each caste percentages are not known. Third is how do people perceive themselves to which caste they belong. It's a very, very cumbersome procedure. So one thing easy to say that this caste fellow, that caste fellow, but it's not a very. But in practice, all over India, individual states and other things, there are bigger chunks of people who know that to which caste they belong, and And the important point is, each caste, sub-caste is a sampradaya. I think we should recognize this. When you create a casteless society, you are destroying all these sampradayas. What are the sampradayas? Dealing with birth. Each caste, sub-caste has got a way of welcoming the new child. Namakaranam, Mundagam, all these samskaras are done by every caste in their own fashion. Some do it after 1 year, some name it after 1 month, some name it after 10 days. Betrothal, marriage, and dealing with women during childbirth, and different stages like 60s, 80s and other things. Death and ceremonies. Most of the Hindu caste have 13th day, 13 days of fast. But many are 6 days only. Some of them have 7 days only. Some of them call the ladies' side, some of them call the men's side, and all of them are different. Food habits are different. Even the way they cut the chicken, even the way they eat the chicken, mutton and other things are totally different for different subcastes. Method of preparation is different. Dress habits traditionally have been different, except now mostly it is come into pants and jeans and other things. Celebration of festivals are different. Not all castes are involved in celebrating all the type of, some of them celebrate some festivals much more fervently and important. Family and extended family role. In most of the community, what are called Dayadis and Bangalis, who are belonging to the male side of the picture, who are belonging to the girl side of the picture. What type of relationship they have got. All these are existing reality. So when you say you abolish caste, I don't understand what we are talking about. They are going to remove all these sampradayas and everyone must have the same type of namakarana, everyone must have same type of mundaka, I do not, or the same type of marriage. Marriage itself is totally different in different type of community. It's not identical. So we have to be very cautious when we are looking at some of these issues. Now we have in India, the Central Statistical Organization, they have conducted exhaustive census in 1998, 2005 and 2010. It's a very, very massive census. 98 they covered 30.35 million enterprises. Enterprises means even one person doing the work. As long as some product is sold in the market or to somebody, to the neighbor, that will be called an enterprise. There are two types of enterprises in the definition. Own account enterprise and then establishment. Own account means the account for which they are done is using their family labor and other things. Or even if one hired person is there, then that would be classified in the form of establishment. This is what they have done. These census reveals to us very interesting things. 2005, 41.83 million. First point we should underscore is 80% of these were found to be self-financing. So I investigated what is self-financing. Self-financing is financing done by family and by caste groups in the respective places. That is called self-financing. Not by banks, not by, we are talking about not Ambani's or Hindustan liver. We are talking about 42 million, very, very small, including the one who is selling vegetable on the street. That type of enterprises we are talking about. 6th economic census, that's a recent one. Unfortunately, after that we don't have. 58.5 million establishments were found in operation. Establishment, as I told, situated in a single location, one kind of economic activity, such that at least some portion is sold in the market. 70% were own account, remaining were establishment. Establishment means one hired worker at least. And of that, proprietary firms constituted 89%. Again, more than 90% are self-financed. This is very, very critical. 10% of these enterprises are only financed by banks and other financial institutions. This is the major issue in India. How to get proper financing for these enterprises. they all borrow today at anywhere between 2 to 6% per month. Very important to recognize. 2 to 6%, not per annum, per month. This is what they are getting financed. Now social group they have done. We find in 1998 what are called SC, ST and other backward class. What is classified in the what one can call respective states as well as the center. This is what they have. After the VP Singh thing, it became OBC is also recognized by the center. So 44.8% of the aggregate, that 60 million or so, is owned by SC, ST and OBC. This was in 1998. If you come to 2005, it became 50.5. And you can see that power of OBCs is increasing. They are becoming more and more into economic activity. In 2013, it became 57.6. Our own estimate is today in 2019, it will be around 65%. Roughly 2/3 of the economic enterprises in India are owned by SC, ST and OBC. And OBCs have gained a phenomenal amount of importance, which is as it should be, because it's also reflected in the political type of power which has been acquired by the OBCs in the last, say, 20 to 30 years. Now, proprietary and partnership, again you can have in manufacturing, trading and other. They are given it in the form of a chart. You find the green is OBC, then 28 and 13%. This whole thing is actually, you find the role of OBCs in ownership of this entity. These are all owners or partners of the enterprise. Again, we are not talking about big companies or something. We are talking about very, very MSME of that most micro type of picture. So there is a huge amount of push of SC, ST and OBC. So we should recognize that SC, ST and OBC play a very, very important role as Vaishyas of this country. If you want to put it other way, in India, Vaishyaization is taking. Everybody is becoming a Vaishya. Brahmin is becoming a Vaishya. Kshatriya is becoming a. Hopefully this trend will continue and government will get out of being a Vaishya. Government should only play a role of a Kshatriya in terms of defending the borders and defending internal security. So the whole country, you can see, huge amount of changes is taking place. And financing of these enterprises, as I told you, is a major issue actually. If one single issue we should focus, how to get organized financing. When we say organized, it means at a reasonable rate. Today they are borrowing at 2 to 6% per month. The retail, my flower vendor and vegetable vendor are borrowing at sometimes as 2 to 3% per week also. But predominantly 2 to 6% is the going rate. And on the other side, Walmart is able to borrow at 3.5% per annum. So definitely this is not a level playing field. Somebody who borrows money, $1 million at 3.5% per annum, versus somebody who is borrowing at 2 to 4% per month. So there is no way in which these things can compete. So this is the way which I think one of the major things if government comes back to power,
Professor Vaidyanathan, you have to leave some time for questions also.
Yeah, good. I'm going to.
We have to finish at 12:30.
Yeah.
So including questions.
Correct. So this is if the government comes back to power, this should be one of the major focus areas. How to get availability of finance for these agencies, including what he was telling in terms of having the illegal money kept abroad being brought back. Now social capital, we are not going to go into that detail. Basically a group, how it is able to leverage its linkages in terms of doing the business. So many people, French sociologists, then the American Fukuyama, so many people have defined this and how it is benefiting another thing. For instance, Murcheranda, who used to be a corporate person, he has studied this very small group of Alanpur Jains, how they began to control what is known as the diamond market in Antwerp. It's a very fascinating study. The Wall Street Journal wrote an article saying this is the first time the Jews were defeated in business without violence by the Alanpur Jains. So that is how the community has. So we have a lot of examples we have studied something like nearly 50 clusters. And all these clusters are caste clusters. For instance, Tirupur is a classic example. They became very major exporters of written garments. One of the major reasons is the Gauda community had significant amount of linkages, and this has been brought out by a huge study by World Development Report of the World Bank in 2002 itself. How the Gauda community provided risk mitigating features, how they facilitated the other members of the community to access the global market. So the social capital helps in these ways. Provision of initial capital to the newly coming members into the business. Market access. Expansion of the market takes place. It is not the same person who expands everywhere. He allows other people to expand. Sometimes the helper in the shop, he will set up another shop in a newly emerging suburbs and other things. Third is intricacies of local laws. Many may not know all the local laws which are pertinent. For instance, the entire South Bangalore electrical sales are controlled by what are known as the Mewaris. They are from Rajasthan, India. And these Mewaris are similar to Marwaris, but slightly regionally they are. So they may not know initially what is the local laws of Karnataka in terms of retail sales and everything. But the community comes to their help and the regulations, and of course also how to avoid paying taxes or paying any of these loyal labor. It's another thing. Huge amount of labor is brought from their own villages actually. It's something with the own town. For instance, when I got into the car, I asked the man, "Are you from Tiruchendur?" He was surprised because there is one group called India Cab. It is owned by the Dinasandi group or Shivanti Aditya Nara. So almost all the drivers are from that area. They are all belonging to the same community. They come, they work, and after some time they acquire vehicles. They become the owners of the vehicles also. Then availability of credit obviously because of the cost. But NPA is relatively very small. The reason is there is a huge amount of cost pressure to return the loans. Otherwise your izzat is affected, otherwise your standing is affected in the community. Last but not least is acceptance of failure. This has been seen all over the world. The Patels of Gujarat, they control roughly 65 to 70% of the motel industry in the west coast of USA. They own almost all the motels, small hotels. And some Patels who go there get the loans and help and other things, but they don't succeed. But the other Patels come and accept the failure and provide them with solace and some more funding, which of course obviously with the future gains and other things. Now, there are a large number of clusters in India we mentioned. United Nations says something like 350 small clusters and 2,000 other dispersed clusters. Now these clusters, we visited quite a number of these clusters, 400 or so. We found that most of these clusters are caste clusters. With the government in their reports or all the researchers failed to mention. They somehow wanted to, this is I would say one of the single largest either deliberate or otherwise of the Nehruvian legacy. The communities are the core of these clusters. And based on the clusters, later colleges were developed, temples were built by these people. All these surrounding benefits were made actually. We studied Tirupur, Karur, Sivagasi, Ludhiana, Batala, Jalandhar, Ramnagar, Dospalapur, so many places. Patels, Gaundars, Nadars, Rajus, Naidus, and all these people we did interaction and studies. Characteristics of clusters are, and all the clusters are taken from here, are clusters. This is something which is not fully recognized, and clusters are promoted by very, very ordinary people. Most of them are less than 20 class. First generation entrepreneurs are all 7th or 8th classes, not very well versed in English or, but their risk-taking ability is phenomenal, actually. Then there is a very interesting thing, development taking place. Dalit as a group is having a huge amount of entrepreneurship. Their community, and some of them are very big. Kalpana Saroj, she had Kamani Tubes, I had occasion to interview her or talk to her. They have got 500 crores actually, about turnover. It's a big thing. They have what is known as the DICCI, Dalit Chamber of Commerce, which interacts with the government, with the ministry and other things. And so they say that we would derive enormous amount of benefit from being entrepreneur rather than demanding government jobs. This is something very, very interesting which is taking place. Caste in politics, last we will come to. Those who went into predominantly in politics, primarily and reservation basis, they have not succeeded. Those who went into business have succeeded phenomenally. Tamil Nadu itself, one example I will give. The Nadars and Gaundars of Tamil Nadu have gone into business and they have succeeded phenomenally. Today no government can be formed without the support of these type of groups. Whereas Vaniyars and Dalits primarily were demanding for government jobs and reservations. There is a limit beyond which they are not able to. So it is very important that we have to have a roadmap for the different caste groups to calibrate changes in our context. So last, I would like to quote the favorite rishi of this last century, Virat. He addressed Hindus in Jaffna. Somebody raised a question about abolition of caste. He said, the older I grow, better I seem to think of these time-honored institutions in India. There is a time when I used to think many of them were useless and worthless, that should be thrown. But the older I grow, older means he was not very old actually, 33, 34. The more I seem to feel a diffidence in cursing any one of them. Each is an embodiment of experience of centuries, not me. Swami Vivekananda says. So primarily we are a non-corporate economy, which we should recognize. Partnership, proprietorship, they constitute large chunks. Their financing is based on family and community, not based on commercial banks and others. Clusters of activity are caste and community. Advantages are market access, labor availability. For instance, Chandigarh was built by Telugus, not many people even are known about it or aware of it. Large number of laborers were transported from the areas of Chittoor, and that's primarily a big chunk of labor for construction activities. Kendrapara, one district in Orissa, many may not even know. 60% of the plumbers of the country come from that one place. That district leader recently joined even BJP. Actually, one. So there is a massive mobility is taking place. For instance, we wanted to paint our home. I told her, my wife, at our age, why do you want to do all this? She told, no, we should paint our home. At the end of 1 month, she learned some Bhojpuri. The house was not painted. he learned some, because the people from Bhojpur are the Bhojpuri language people are the predominant painting people in Bangalore. Anyhow, so avoiding recognize the role of caste. And I think we should celebrate diversity. That is what I would say. Instead of abusing it to start with and then never start with a proposition we will abolish caste. It's not going to take place, not in my life, not in your life. Thank you.
Well, we are grateful in one sense that is a very thought-provoking speech, but normally we give him a subject where he can crack jokes and he makes us laugh throughout. This is a very important thesis he has got. I'll begin by asking the first question. This organization that you have described, would you require it not to be birth-based? Birth-based. That is, the entry into the particular caste or class will be free for whoever wants to enter.
Yeah, you can, what one can call, I don't think, first of all, there is no compulsion. In a lot of urban areas, people, individual people don't even, identify themselves with any caste. So here, we are not arguing about caste as a, how it should evolve or how. I am only telling what I have observed, that this is a, so if people want to, for instance, whether one likes it or not, almost all the castes have now become Vaishyas. Even though they are, classified as agriculturist and this and that, all are now in business. Vaishyaization of India has taken place. So, this is what I think, Brahmins are Vaishyas today. Kshatriyas are Vaishyas. Sudras are Vaishyas. All are Vaishyas. So there is nothing called, it's not, but the thing is, there is a certain amount of trust and certain amount of it. Our society is not a contract-based society. It's not a rule-based society, very sorry to tell. It's a trust-based and it is a relationship-based society. So within that, the existing group of people, caste people, facilitate business and other transactions and all. Somebody wants to enter, fine and good.
One more question from me. What is the difference between this system you have described and say a typically Western system like America?
This actually in the book I have dealt with, it actually was one of the, you find out from that, right? Anyhow, we had a lot of, he gave a lot of people. The European or American system is not much, you will be surprised. Except they don't call it caste, they call it in terms of church. Going into, see for instance, Marriott group of hotels you would have seen everywhere, I'm sure, most of you would have seen. That Marriott group is owned by Mormon. One small group of American, what one can call, they call themselves as born again Christians, or later day saints. Mormons are the largest pastors of going. The point I want to say, they will not give any share to outside Mormons. Similarly, large number of businesses are Presbyterian. Large number of businesses are very different. Same thing in Europe. Different type of churches, different type of people are. So it's not, I won't say it is substantially different. And many of them again birthplace. To which church you belong is, of course, later on people can always shift, but the proportion of people shifting is very, very minuscule. Something like Islamic. Islam, if you are born a Sunni, you are a Sunni. There is nothing you can do about it. You can change later, arguments are there. So all these, globally, there is a huge number of clusters and type of businesses which are done by people who have got similar, why the church believes, because they have similar type of upbringing, they have similar type of attitude, they have similar type of belief system, eating habits, and all these things get formed. That's all. There is nothing spectacularly. I would say with except they would claim themselves to be above all these statistics. Whereas